Sarah Ferguson spent decades fighting scandals, rebuilding her image, and trying to prove she's more than the headlines. Yet even after divorcing Prince Andrew in 1996, she never packed her bags and left his royal home. For years, people whispered excuses, the kids, the friendship, the best divorce in the world, but a royal insider just dropped a truth bomb that flips the whole story on its head. So now the question that won't go away is this: was it really love? Or something else keeping Fergie under the same roof as Andrew all this time? My Aussie interview with Fergie.
I've just returned from an extraordinary encounter with Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. It was her first Australian interview in 8 years, so I was looking forward to our meeting.
And I still remember the day I sat across from Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, the woman the world calls Fergie. It was her first Australian interview in 8 long years, and there was a strange kind of electricity in the air. The private estate outside London looked like a movie scene. Green lawns, soft breeze, horses in the distance. She walked toward me with that familiar red hair and a smile that could light up a room. There was something disarming about her presence, like she knew how to charm her way into any moment. You could sense she had come ready to talk, maybe even to make peace with her past. For a few minutes, it felt like I wasn't interviewing a duchess, but a woman trying to breathe again after years of judgment.
And brutally honest about her failings. And then there's Bad Fergie, her description, not mine, who makes bad judgments and lands herself in scandal time after time.
Fergie started off as her best self, funny, open, brutally honest about her flaws. She joked about her mistakes, spoke about how her bad judgment had shaped her life, and seemed genuinely at ease. For someone who'd been on the front page of scandals for decades, she appeared surprisingly self-aware. She admitted she'd made thunderous mistakes, but she said it with a kind of confidence that comes from survival. You could see flashes of the young woman who once married into royalty, the one who brought laughter and chaos to the stiff corridors of Buckingham Palace.
But don't try and trick me now, because I'm not going to play this game. Delete that bit. John, can you just delete it, please, that bit? Because I don't want to go down this...
Duchess, I'm asking very fair questions of you.
No, it's too tabloidy.
But something changed as soon as the questions got closer to the wounds she still carried. When I brought up her past scandals, especially the one that involved her being caught on tape offering access to Prince Andrew for money, her expression shifted. Her voice sharpened, her eyes narrowed. It was like watching a door slam shut mid-sentence. She demanded parts of the conversation be deleted, her tone almost pleading, but with a royal firmness that made the room feel heavy. "Delete that bit," she said. The warmth from before had vanished, replaced by the cautious Fergie who spent her life defending herself. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just talking to a former royal. I was watching someone live in constant battle with herself. There was Sarah, the kind-hearted mother who adored her daughters, and then there was Bad Fergie, the side she blames for every scandal, every misstep. Those two versions of her seemed to clash right there in front of me. She laughed one minute, fought back tears the next. The duality was striking. She wanted to be seen as honest, but she also wanted control over how that honesty was presented. As I left the estate that day, I couldn't shake off the feeling that her story was more complicated than headlines ever allowed it to be. Behind the polite laughter and rehearsed grace was a woman still trying to understand her own choices. And the biggest of them all, her decision to keep living with Prince Andrew decades after their divorce, lingered in my mind. Was it love, loyalty, habit, or something else entirely? That's the mystery of Fergie. Always smiling on the surface, but always guarding the truth just beneath it. The unusual setup. Divorced, but still roommates.
She hasn't been just Sarah since she married Prince Andrew in 1986.
To love, cherish, and to obey.
And for richer, or for poorer, became the Duchess of York.
When you think of divorced couples, you usually imagine two people who've gone their separate ways. New homes, new routines, maybe even new partners. But Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew rewrote that story completely. After marrying in 1986, the world watched their fairy tale wedding play out on television, with Fergie stepping into royal life as the spirited, fun-loving Duchess of York.
I mean, you were the breath of fresh air into this royal family. How do you reflect on your wedding day?
Oh, it's the best day of my life, apart from having my girls.
She was the breath of fresh air the monarchy didn't know it needed. Until, of course, she became the scandal magnet it couldn't control. By 1992, their marriage had crumbled under pressure, and by 1996, the divorce was final. Most assumed that was the end of it, yet somehow it wasn't. More than a decade later, around 2008, the two found themselves sharing a roof again. Not just any roof, but the 30-room Royal Lodge in Windsor. Imagine that, divorced for over 10 years, yet living together in a sprawling royal residence. People were confused. Was it for their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie? Was it nostalgia for the past? Or was it simply because neither was willing to fully let go of the other? Whatever the reason, it became one of the strangest living arrangements in royal history. You could almost call it a royal roommate situation. Two people divorced on paper, but still deeply entangled in every practical way. When I asked her about it, she smiled with that knowing, mischievous expression and said something that stuck with me. "We're divorced from each other, not from each other." It sounded like a riddle, half emotional, half evasive, but maybe that's what made it so revealing. She wasn't denying the bond, she was redefining it. They weren't lovers, but they weren't strangers either. They were co-parents, business allies, and in many ways each other's last line of defense against a world that had turned its back on both of them at different times. To her, their relationship made perfect sense. To everyone else, it looked like a paradox. She had her space in the house, he had his, yet they often appeared together at family events. Even after everything, the scandals, the separation, the years apart, there was a quiet rhythm to how they functioned under one roof. Andrew, with his public disgrace after the Epstein scandal, found in her perhaps the only person who wouldn't abandon him. And Fergie, who'd faced her own share of humiliation, found stability in a home that still offered a trace of her old royal life. But there's also a practical side no one can ignore. The Royal Lodge isn't just a sentimental setting, it's a luxury worth millions, and maintaining it separately would be nearly impossible. Their arrangement saved costs, simplified life, and allowed both to preserve a slice of royal privilege. Some royal insiders even described it as mutually beneficial. Still, the emotional undercurrent was hard to miss. Whenever she talked about him, there was always a softness, a tone that hinted at affection, maybe even gratitude. You could tell she saw Andrew not just as her ex-husband, but as someone who'd shared the most defining chapter of her life. And maybe that's the truth behind it all. Fergie never really stopped being part of his world because walking away would mean losing the last piece of the identity that once made her feel seen. It's an unusual setup, yes, but maybe it's also deeply human. Two people who've hurt each other, disappointed the world, yet somehow found comfort in each other's familiar chaos. It's strange, it's messy, but it's theirs, and it leaves everyone asking, what keeps her there? Love, loyalty, or just the safety of what she already knows? The insider's bombshell. It's more than family harmony. When I heard the latest from the royal reporting world, I braced myself. What surfaced about Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew went far beyond a quirky living arrangement. A longtime royal expert, Richard Fitzwilliams, didn't mince words. He labeled their decades-old setup an arrangement of convenience. Not a story of divorce, amicably managed, but a calculated partnership aimed squarely at maintaining lifestyle and status. It made me rewind to the moment I asked Fergie why she stayed. She leaned back, smiled, and said something like, "We're divorced from each other, not from each other." It sounded sweet, warm even, but beneath that, the insider claims a harder truth. By staying under the same roof, they kept access to a grand royal home, to public appearances, to perks most of us only glimpse through paparazzi lenses. Financially and publicly, the expert argued it worked better if they looked united. The article was blunt. My feeling is that it was because they are extremely greedy. I think the problem was they desired a certain lifestyle, and this was the main way to get it. That word, greedy, stung. It painted a very different picture from the one Fergie gave during our chat. She talked about family, compromise, and loyalty. She wanted you to feel she was doing it for her daughters, for the sake of continuity, for the York Family United front. But a cozy family shot wasn't the only lens through which the experts were viewing this. The suggestion, this was as much strategy as sentiment. By living in the grand mansion together, they shared not only roof and routines, but also the optics of royalty that still carried influence. Think about it. A sprawling estate, royal appearances, media narratives, and a legacy still very much alive in the public eye. For Fergie, perhaps this arrangement offered more than just roots. Maybe it was a way to anchor her identity, protect her status, even while the royal world shifted around her. And for Andrew, in the wake of scandal and scrutiny, having someone by his side who accepted the weirdness of their arrangement might have been invaluable. When I looked into her eyes during the interview, I saw the flash of awareness that this wasn't all about photographs and castle walls. I sensed she knew the price of staying, doors closed to certain questions, stories edited, a constant balancing act between vulnerability and defense. She allowed our conversation to tread into her darkest pit of shame, the sting, the scandal, the financial fallout, but only up to a point. Then suddenly, delete that bit. The request wasn't just about one moment, it felt like a boundary, and boundaries often exist where business and emotion collide.
But today, they have a unique relationship. When she's in London, she lives at the Prince's house, and in the wake of the Sting scandal, he came to her rescue and paid her debts.
The bombshell isn't just that Fergie still lives with Andrew, it's what that living means. It suggests that behind the mimed unity lies a deal, one that blends family, image, convenience, and legacy. It isn't messy just for the sake of being messy. It's messy because it's real. And for you and me watching this unfold, the real question becomes, was their staying together ever purely about love or family, or was it always part of a royal calculus they both signed up for? Scandal, fallout, and why the arrangement matters. Sarah Ferguson's life has never been short of drama, and for years her name has been tied to one headline after another. The most infamous moment came in 2010, when a hidden camera caught her offering access to her ex-husband, Prince Andrew, in exchange for $500,000. It was a sting that played out like a bad movie. A desperate duchess, drowning in debt, promising introductions to the Prince of England. When the footage aired, her world imploded. Fergie later admitted that she'd been at rock bottom and completely lost. I believed him, and I didn't follow my instinct, she confessed. That moment stripped away whatever glamour remained from her royal past and left her fighting to rebuild her reputation. She called it the lowest point of her life. And you could feel that honesty when she spoke about it, but the scandals didn't stop there. Even as she worked to repair her image, Andrew's own controversies began to overshadow hers. His association with Jeffrey Epstein shattered what was left of his royal reputation. Once considered the Queen's favorite son, he was stripped of his public duties, titles, and credibility. And because Sarah still lived under his roof at the Royal Lodge, the fallout inevitably splashed onto her. They might have been divorced, but public perception doesn't work that way. When one name is stained, the other doesn't stay spotless. Her continued presence in his home blurred the line between support and complicity, leaving many to wonder why she stayed attached to a man whose scandals had become a global embarrassment. During our interview, I asked her if living with Andrew was ever difficult after everything that had happened. She didn't flinch, but her answer was layered. She spoke about loyalty, about family, about being there for someone when the world walks away. Yet there was a weariness beneath her words. She knew how her proximity to him looked, and she wasn't blind to the criticism. Still, she made it sound like leaving wasn't an option, not emotionally, and maybe not practically either. The house they share isn't just a place to live, it's a fortress built on shared history, comfort, and perhaps a lingering sense of unfinished business. It's easy to forget that for Fergie, this isn't just about love or loyalty, it's about survival. After decades in the public eye, she understands how fragile identity can be when you've built it around royalty. Living with Andrew kept her tethered to a world that once defined her. Walking away completely might mean disappearing from it altogether, yet at the same time, the arrangement has become a liability. Every time Andrew's name makes headlines, hers follows. Every photograph of her walking through the gates of the Royal Lodge carries the weight of his scandal. The connection she once relied on for stability now keeps her trapped in his shadow. When she talked about hitting rock bottom, it wasn't just about the sting operation. It was about losing control of her own narrative. The feeling that no matter what she did, her name would always circle back to controversy. That's why this living arrangement matters so much. It's not just two exes sharing space, it's the embodiment of everything she's tried to balance: love, loyalty, status, and the struggle to stay relevant in a world that moves on fast. Fergie's life has always been a tug of war between the woman she wants to be and the image she can't escape, and as long as she lives under the same roof as Andrew, that tug of war isn't ending anytime soon. Why she's said to be moving on, and what that tells us. After years of being under the same roof, it finally seems like Sarah Ferguson is ready to move out of Prince Andrew's shadow. Literally. Recent. Reports reveal that Fergie is planning to move into her own separate home, marking the end of one of the strangest post-divorce living arrangements in royal history. For decades, she and Andrew shared the Royal Lodge in Windsor, a massive estate that became their comfort zone, a private cocoon shielding them from public judgment. But things have changed. Andrew's royal standing has collapsed completely, and the royal family's patience with old scandals has run thin. The timing of Fergie's move couldn't be more symbolic. It's a quiet declaration of independence after years of being tied to someone who can no longer offer protection, only controversy. You can almost sense the emotional and practical weight behind this decision. For years, their living arrangement was justified as family harmony. They shared space for their daughters, they supported each other emotionally, and perhaps they both found comfort in the familiarity. But with Andrew stripped of his Duke of York title and his royal privileges, that shared stability no longer serves her. The convenience has become a risk. Every headline about him drags her name back into the mud, no matter how far she's come. And at a time when she's rebuilding her brand through charity work, books, and public speaking, continuing to live under the same roof could easily undo all that progress. When I spoke with her, she hinted at this emotional shift long before it became public. There was a calmness in her tone, not defiant, but settled. She talked about finding peace after years of chaos, about developing the tools to handle her life better. That phrase, the tools, stayed with me. It wasn't just therapy talk, it was the sound of a woman learning how to manage her world without relying on someone else to anchor it. She spoke about wanting contentment rather than constant noise, about moving forward without fear. At the time, it sounded like reflection. Now, in hindsight, it sounds like preparation. It's easy to underestimate what this move represents for her. For the first time in decades, Fergie is setting up a home that's entirely her own. Not a royal residence, not shared property, not a borrowed piece of the monarchy. It's hers. That's not just a logistical change, it's a psychological break. She's separating her life story from Andrew's and, in a way, rewriting how people will remember her. After years of being the Duchess who couldn't quite leave the royal bubble, she's choosing to step out of it on her own terms. But even as she takes this step, it's clear that this isn't about resentment or rejection. Fergie has never publicly turned against Andrew, and probably never will. Their bond runs deep, built on decades of shared history, children, and survival through the same storms. What's changing is her need for space, clarity, and identity. This move signals that she's ready to stop being defined by the past and start shaping a future that's entirely her own. The arrangement that once offered safety has become a burden, and walking away from it takes strength. Maybe that's what she meant when she said she finally feels strong. After years of defending her mistakes, managing his scandals, and living in the shadows of the palace walls, Fergie is finally stepping into her own light. And if you've followed her story this far, you can't help but feel this time she just might be moving, not just houses, but forward. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.